Welcome to the movie night for Chronicle, the surprise hit sci-fi found footage style film released earlier this year. Hey, where you going? Come on, camera, come on. Man, you really have to focus to keep objects floating where you want them to be going. If you haven't noticed, I am using the power of Chronicle to control the camera. No, not so well.
I review movie previews.
Perfect. Nothing beats a stationary camera sometimes. We'll be discussing that idea and many others in tonight's movie night for Chronicle. If you haven't been part of a movie night before, it's basically a critic's audio commentary. You on your end have already seen the movie, so you're not worried about understanding the story the first time here, and you sync your video up with the audio here of this movie night, and we hang out for a couple hours and talk about the film, hopefully discovering some kind of movie truth. Throughout the movie night, I'm going to be marking the time code so that we can relatively stay in sync on a scene-to-scene basis. Also, there will be moments of silence, some that last 5 seconds, others that last 50. These have been kept in order to keep the sync with the audio and the video. When it was released in the theaters earlier this year in 2012, it became a surprise hit. Now that it's been released on DVD and Blu-ray, it's time for us to take an in-depth look at what worked, why it did, and what could have been done to make it an even greater film. Now, let's use the power of Chronicle to press play in 3, 2, 1. Chronicle is a really interesting film, and I wish it would have been a great film. But to take that step from really good entertainment into memorable, powerful filmmaking, the theme that the character brings to a story really needs to be explored and addressed. The theme here is bullying. Andrew is a teenager in America in high school. One of the worst experiences a human can go through. Adolescence with other adolescents, surrounded by adults that are not really motivated to help and nurture everyone because there's too many people involved and there are too many emotions and interests and politics. So it's a very trying experience to try to be a functional human being, try to grow into one in this kind of environment. And bullying has been something that has been in the headlines for a long time, but lately, in the last 2 to 3, 5 years, it's really become an issue because with social networking and instant communication, the power of the bully is everywhere and that much more enormous. The echo of a bully's taunt is not confined now to the halls of a school, but to the endless space, the chasm of the internet universe. The first opening scene, with his dad basically being a bully to him, really powerful, very unsettling, and we don't see the father by the end of it. But we get a sense of what Andrew's life is like, and who the dad is, and what possible emotional stirrings are going on within the main character. Very next scene, opposite of the father, would be the dying mother, who really looks like someone who's sick. Apparently, maybe she has cancer. It's not really explained. It's not too important that we know the details. We want to feel the emotional effects. So she's dying of something, and Andrew is powerless to do something about it. This is another idea that could have been explored a little bit. When Andrew starts to develop his powers, maybe he wants to use them to try to affect the human body. It doesn't go that way. We'll talk about it when those scenes happen later on. But there are some ideas here that could have been explored a little bit more. The third scene is Andrew getting a ride from his cousin. And then the fourth scene here, 3 minutes, 20 seconds, they arrive at school. there's going to be a constant theme, the constant idea that everyone Andrew meets is some kind of a bully. Even his semi-kind of friend cousin does a little bit of passive-aggressive bullying to him. At this stage in life, it seems that everyone's trying to find someone they can feel that they're above. The whole point of view camera, this found footage angle of the storytelling, which became popular in 1999 with the Blair Witch Project, but it had been around for a while. Blair Witch was really the one that got Hollywood's attention because it made a load of money. And when anything makes a money, Hollywood wants to repeat that until it's dried up and dead and wasted away. In the last few years, found footage movies have really become popular. Oren Peli, arguably, with Paranormal Activity, reignited the interest in this. In 1999, there wasn't YouTube. The internet wasn't fast enough to support home movies, videos, and there wasn't the iPhone. So while it was progressive at the time, and it was really in service of the story, that idea was something that lent itself to being told through found footage, it really didn't become practical till a few years ago. So with Paranormal Activity, now we have a new energized reinterest in this. And just this year we already had Project X come out and Chronicle, which debuted in February of 2012. High school life is rough. Andrew gets bullied again. His camera gets kicked around, the camera being a representation of Andrew through his eyes. So we visually get to feel and see what it's like to be bullied. The thing with found footage is that it has to make sense for what the story is. In Blair Witch, it totally fits. Really quickly here, 554, we introduce the neighborhood bullies, which seem to be small-time drug dealers. They only show up really one more time in the film, and in a very kind of forced manner. They don't really add anything organically to the story, so we'll discuss that a little bit later. But the notion here, we're starting to layer that there's a sense of bullying, and it's a big theme here, and I just wish it was a little more introduced. And then now we have 623. The father comes into the room, and we think, okay, he's just going to yell at him, but he gets violent. And it's really unsettling, very uncomfortable to watch. And we get what he looks like, who he is. He's kind of young and seems to be in shape, so we're kind of like, well, what's this guy's deal? Why is he so upset? Other than his wife is dying. And that's an element that we don't really get discussed through that character. We just get the implication that he's a frustrated guy. He's powerless. He's lost his job or he's become injured. He was strong at one time, was a fireman, was someone who would help. And because his power has been taken away and he's helpless in trying to do anything for his wife, he's taking everything out on Andrew. He's pretty immature, and unfortunately this mirrors real life situations. You see it on screen and you kind of think, well, this is just heightened for a film. But nope, that really exists. So Andrew is a bully magnet, and on the one sense it seems like it's just being really poured on too heavy here by the filmmakers. As a screenwriter, the decision is made, okay, you want to start a character at the beginning of a story in a certain place. And usually in the stories we remember, we go along with the character on some kind of a journey, whether that journey is one of growth or one of self-destruction. This is going to be one of self-destruction. And much like Michael Corleone in the Godfather saga. We don't necessarily need to have stories always be happy endings. They just have to be honest in terms of what the character is going through. So here the filmmakers decide that this character is going to start in a place where he's on the edge of he can either have a journey of growth, he can become a better person, learn to deal with the situation, and not turn to the dark side, or he can fall. This does have an influence of Darth Vader and his storyline in the Star Wars saga. I guess you could say this is kind of Revenge of the Sith-ish, where once he's giving power, the main character decides to use it for evil, or he's just overcome by it. 8 minutes, 55 seconds, we are in the rave and introduced to a pretty unnecessary character, the love interest of Andrew's cousin, the blonde girl with the camera. I don't remember her name, and that is because she is not really that memorable or important to the story. She's only there because her camera needs to be another point of view for this story to be told. Now we meet yet another bully. Andrew was filming some girl dancing, and this dude with a hat, he gives guys with hats a bad reputation, bullies him again, and we get the emotional impact right here of Andrew crying by himself outside in the grass. The introduction of this girl with the camera is now a necessary function of the filmmaking. Instead of letting it organically develop that whatever Andrew's camera is going to capture, the filmmakers realize that, okay, well, Andrew's not going to be in a position with his camera to film everything that we need to show to make this a coherent story. So we're going to now have to start camera jumping. And at this point, it becomes, well, why? Now, with this event, did the authorities afterwards go back to everybody in the area and say, give us your cameras and your cell phones, and we're going to edit this all together? Is the alien Christmas ornament meteorite somehow consciously connected to all them, and it's the one that we're seeing the story through? In my movie review for this, I mentioned it's almost like we're watching Professor X project this on the screen, and he's using Cerebro to capture all the imagery that happened. It ultimately doesn't make sense for this to be a found footage movie because the filmmakers have to cheat. Everything should be from the point of view of Andrew's camera. And it's too convenient for all of a sudden it to be jumping to other cameras. You can say, well, that's kind of being nitpicky. Just enjoy the movie. But it's really about what do you want to establish as a filmmaker? What are your standards when you're making a movie? If you want to tell the story through a found footage style, obey the laws of the found footage. What would have been lost if this was told through the omnipotent point of view that most movies are told through, where it's just the peek into a universe and the camera is kind of the eye of that universe's god, who can switch to any angle at any moment, any character in any location. It's almost a stronger movie if you do it that way. The benefit of doing a found footage style is immediate emotional response. Found footage is basically reality TV. We have shows like Amazing Race or The Apprentice, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. These shows thrive on their confession cam moments. The fact that characters are going to really open up and talk to the cameras is one of the benefits of that style of storytelling. So the idea here should be, well, we're really going to get into the heart and soul and emotional guts of whoever's on camera. And so far, 12 minutes, 48 seconds into the film, as they are now exploring the cave that this meteorite entity is hiding in, has crashed in, has grown in. We really don't understand what this is. Maybe it's a ship that's been buried, which is cool. It's just another mystery. It's kind of like, it also has a very Super 8-ish kind of feel, similar idea where the alien is underground. This image here reminds me a lot of the short-lived and probably mostly forgotten TV series Threshold, 2005, starring Brent Spiner, Data from Star Trek, as one of the side characters. And the idea of that show is that an entity very similar to this kind of snowflake crystal sort of thing appears and emits a sound, and the sound starts bioforming humans on a cellular DNA level. It also starts terraforming the planet. It's only like, I believe, 12 or 15 episodes of the series. It didn't even make it to a full season. Really interesting in terms of that idea. It's not all that important here what changes them and what that thing is. The focus of the story is how is this change going to affect them as people, and what would they do with this power? "14 minutes, 28 seconds, we have a time jump. And this is one of the first cheats of the movie, because the whole thing with found footage, if you go into the character's point of view and they want to record everything and document it, why would they wait 3 weeks to start filming again? So now you have to ask, well, is it because whoever edited this couldn't find that footage? That footage was erased? Wouldn't it have been interesting to see them escaping? And if you are in that situation with a camera, wouldn't you want to record your immediate emotional reaction to what's going on? This is a lot of fun right here. This is 15 minutes, 18 seconds into the film. They're in the backyard and they're starting to do these tests with their powers. And it's, really fun. This is what teens would do. If you're 15, 16, 17, 18, and something strange like this would happen, of course you're going to be doing stuff like this. Without the X-Men Academy around, what would happen to all those mutants that have their powers? They'd keep it a secret, they'd find each other, they'd be testing it. The blood running down the nose, that's a classic telekinetic device that goes back to the 80s films Scanners and Firestarter. If you use your mental powers, it strains the brain, and that leads to a bloody nose. Aside from bullying, the other idea going on in this film, which really gets hinted at later on as Andrew is attacking Seattle, the notion of everything being filmed. Everybody has a camera, the internet, everyone existing only once something has been recorded and uploaded. You're not really real unless you have a blog or a YouTube account or something that shows that you exist. You're recording your everyday movements, you're doing your Facebook posts and your tweets. This notion of trying to find some kind of weight in the world, make some kind of an impact. It's hinted at with Andrew. Why did he choose all of a sudden to get a video camera and record everything? If he's trying to prove that his dad is unfit as a father and wants to give proof to some sort of agency that will take some action and help out his family situation, that's one thing. Why isn't he focusing more on recording that? Why not just use a cell phone? Why use this kind of semi-professional type of camera? The look of this film is a little bit too crisp. I really would have voted for a kind of handheld iPhone camera sort of style where it's not as high resolution as this. It just makes it seem too professional. The next thing would be related to the technique. The camera angles would be really off because no one here has studied filmmaking. So just the framing of the scenes and how everything unfolds visually would have to be slightly off because no one here is knowledgeable about that. And with that, the impact of the visuals wouldn't convey the emotional weight of the scene. There's a scene later on where Andrew visits Steve's grave. That's really great. Good emotional moment. but would it be filmed the way that it is? So we'll talk about that when we get there. This is a really great scene. One of the first 18 minutes, 35 seconds. The camera is filming both of them in the car now, and finally Andrew's being asked, don't you think that that camera is kind of like a barrier between you and reality? That's a great question, and it totally is. Andrew is someone who is just having a really hard time in life. He's just totally beaten down, and he's trying to do everything he can to survive. He actually has kind of a very similar look to Leonardo DiCaprio, a young version of him, and DiCaprio was in Basketball Diaries, and that had kind of like a bully element to it, famous kind of high school revenge moment that was later referenced with the Columbine massacre. So bullying has been around a while, obviously, in real life, in cinema, and there have been horrible real-life tragedies as a result. You could say that this film almost had a responsibility to go in that territory because it brings it up so much, but it doesn't allow Andrew as a character to explore and reveal all of these emotions that are going through him. Really nice scene here with the mother. "20 minutes into the film, they're by the water, and she says, I want to remember you like this. You're stronger than this. Can you say that for me?" Now, why does it keep cutting? The editing here is really strange. Because we never know who edits this, we don't get a sense for why the cuts were made this way. If the film decided to use the typical God's eye point of view, where the filmmakers control what's shown and they can hold on any moment as long as they want, that scene would have been a lot different. It would have been continuous, and we would have seen Andrew's emotions a little bit more. Is this Andrew editing all these emotional moments out? Because it's a very light movie so far. The idea, again, is really great, but the scenes are cut short when it comes to drama. Just as soon as there's any hint that there's going to be conflict between the characters, it cuts away. Or it doesn't hold long enough to establish any real dynamic emotional moments where one character wants something from the other character, and they now have to fight using their words, using their emotions to try to get something from the other, to try to transform each other. And we're getting the cool genre set piece moments where you have them starting to use their mental powers, but we're not getting deeper and deeper into Andrew as a person and what is later going to make him turn to that dark side. Great funny moment here, 21 minutes, 50 seconds, when the leaf blower is used to blow up the skirts. If you're in high school, absolutely you would do that with your powers. I'm surprised there's actually not more of that. We're going to be coming up soon on Andrew taking quick turns towards his eventual downfall. As it unfolds, things are going kind of easy for him. He's just kind of like this loner right now, and he just needs some friends. Soon he's going to have friends, and he's going to become popular. So why would he so drastically and quickly switch towards this truly evil person? Having seen Captain America recently with that super soldier serum, the idea is that whatever you have inside of you is magnified. So the better person you are, the better person you become. The more evil you are, the more evil you become. So Red Skull being evil and Captain America being good. Here we have 23 minutes, 15 seconds. And I guess it's kind of a version of Ted, the new Seth MacFarlane film that's coming out, where the Teddy Ruxpin teddy bear comes to life. Kind of like that FX show with the dog that is kind of like in a human form. Elijah Wood sees the dog, but as a guy wearing a dog outfit. More scenes now, 23 minutes, 50 seconds into the film, back to back, where they go to the toy store and now they're at the restaurant and they do the fork to the hand. So now they're starting to show that they're also sort of indestructible. They're getting stronger mentally and physically. They're not able to be hurt as much. And then we have a third scene in a row now of them using their powers. Notice that all of these scenes using their powers are just quick little moments, and they don't really progress in any other way other than to say they're getting stronger with these abilities. There's nothing going on thematically with each of them as characters, and they don't have any bigger plans or any bigger reactions to this. They're almost keeping it a little bit too calm. In high school, popularity is such a big thing, and that's part of the reason of bullying, that wouldn't they show these powers off a little bit more? Wouldn't they use them to their advantage to try to become more of a well-known celebrity in their environment? And this is a funny scene, but it's really just purely entertainment value. It's purely genre set piece, and there isn't anything that propels the inner workings of the characters. Other than the show, okay, fine, they're getting their powers under control, or they're starting to understand them. One of the elements of screenwriting, the overall structure, being that there's a main character in pursuit of an objective with an underlying theme. They have a certain type of personality at the beginning of the film, and with that personality, they're going to change by the end. Not necessarily in every film, but in films where there's a journey, that's what happens. An important element with all that is that there is someone that is trying to stop the main character from achieving their objective. There is an opponent trying to stop the main character. Also, a final element of the structure would be a window character, a confession cam character through whom the main character reveals their emotional struggle as they're going on this journey. And there should be stakes. What's at stake if the main character does not achieve their objective? Main character is Andrew, but there is no objective. What does Andrew want to achieve? And because of that, if you don't identify what you want, you cannot identify who is in the way of what you want. So there's no opponent. That's why there's no drama in the scenes here. The scenes are just drama-free, which really means conflict-free. Quick little moments of them using their powers. And it's fun and it's entertaining on a genre level. The idea of X-Men and YouTube found footage superhero movie is really cool, and it's going to keep us interested for the first 30 minutes or so of this film until something more develops. Now, the thing that develops here is 27 minutes into the film. The characters are trying to save an innocent person from dying because Andrew ran a truck off the road in the previous scene. Now, one of the problems here is that that truck, it's so weird that it was honking so much and wanting to get around them. Initially, having seen the preview for this film, I thought, well, this guy maybe is like a government agent or someone that knows something about this meteor. But no, he's just another bully. We get yet again another bully trying to get around them in a rainstorm on a highway or on a road where it's pretty open. There's not a lot of traffic, but it's pretty dangerous because it's curvy, and he wants to drive faster and get around them. We get no explanation why this guy was being a D-bag, but Andrew, just not in control of his powers yet, even though we've been watching all of them being able to control their powers, swiped him off the road. If it's Andrew doing that because this guy triggered that emotional response that all the bullies have over Andrew, that every time he's affected by someone who's a D-bag, a bully, then he gets emotionally out of control and he just wants to act out a little bit, that would be something that we could understand. The way that you do that would be Andrew would have to talk to his camera. At that moment, he should comment, "This guy's acting like an ass. He's acting like a bully. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to make him sorry that he's acting like this." Andrew needs to be a little more outspoken. If Andrew is the main character, his camera is the window character. His camera is the confession camera. And we need to hear what's going on inside of Andrew. If this has all been edited by Andrew, I guess that would make sense that we never see those moments because Andrew is not trying to deal with things emotionally. That's the impression that this movie has given off, that his perspective is that he's trying to hide from what's going on. The mother only appears a few times in the film, and it seems like the mom character and what she's going through should be affecting him a little bit more. Why isn't his goal off the bat to try to help his mom? Why isn't it to try to get rid of the father? There should be an objective right off the bat. Andrew wants to do something in his life. Now we cut here 29 minutes, 40 seconds into the film, and we have Steve floating in the air. Matt, that is the cousin's name, I just remembered it, and Andrew are watching now. So the escalation, the growth of the powers continue, and we know that's going to build towards a really cool sequence towards the end, as this becomes kind of like an Akira wannabe film. We'll talk about Akira in a little bit. But what is Andrew doing in the beginning that he's trying to achieve with the camera? Allow that to be there. Allow him to have some kind of objective that's motivating his actions, that's giving him perspective. And as he has these powers, now that starts to influence and it starts to take over who he is. This scene here, very Akira reminiscent. Akira being a great anime from the late 80s that really set the standard for anime and what storytelling could be in that medium, that style of storytelling. And one of the wet dreams of fanboys around the world of that film is to see a live-action version. There was a great shot in that film where a character with telekinetic abilities gets angry and starts to affect everything around him, and like all the rocks and cars and just everything around him starts to float off the ground. Little hint of it there, of course, later on when Andrew starts just raging out and is about to bring down the buildings. That's ultra reminiscent of that film. Now we cut to another genre set piece that really is drama-free. 31 minutes, 20 seconds into the film, they're flying through the air. This is awesome. This is absolutely like the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man back in 2002, when Peter Parker starts to finally get the hang of his web-slinging through the city abilities, and the camera just really gives us that joy and excitement of what it would be like to be swinging through the city. Here we have a similar type of moment when, if you're this age and have these powers, what would you do? If you could fly, of course you'd be doing this kind of stuff. Having fun, thinking of goofy ideas like football in the sky, why not? And we're going to have another cool genre set piece as the plane comes by them. There isn't really much conflict going on. If this were something like E.T., I guess I thought of that because it's kind of alien reminiscent, there would be the man with the keys looking for E.T., the government looking for E.T., or even Super 8. There has to be some kind of force that is providing some kind of opposition. Andrew hints that he will be that opposition by pushing that guy off the road, and their reactions to him are very worrisome, as they say, you got to control it, we got to have some ground rules. You can't use it when you're angry, you can't use it against living things, which that's all really great. But the lack of immediate opposition, right now they probably should be followed by some kind of authority. They should be found out by the government. Perhaps there were some soil samples taken, or they left some kind of evidence behind, and now they're being sought after by a bigger force. Now that's really going to change the dynamic of the movie. So if you don't want to make it on a bigger scale, which that would become, and keep it just here with this kind of video camera and with these characters, the way to do it would be have Andrew be a source of opposition earlier. He's a little too stable right now. If someone is going to have a character journey through a movie, they need to incrementally change because it's not going to be believable. If you have them change really quickly, there's got to be some kind of Vietnam shell shock, post-traumatic stress syndrome event. There's got to be like, you watch some hardcore stuff, you experience some hardcore stuff, and it really changes who you are in that moment. And you could say that's been building in Andrew's life, but it happens too suddenly, and we need to get the sense of it through the window character, through the confession cam, that it's on the verge, that it's happening. Steve is a funny character here, 34 minutes, 30 seconds into the film, as they talk about using their powers with the girlfriend, and then Matt and Andrew reveal that they don't have girlfriends. Normal teenage stuff, makes it believable, but still there is no conflict between anyone. We're still dealing with testing out the powers and just kind of having a very conflict-free experience. Now, the filmmakers at 35 minutes into the film start to justify new camera angles when Andrew releases the camera and it starts to float. So he's telekinetically going to be constantly giving us camera angles now. So not only is he a teenager with hormonal issues going through big time changes, a teenager without telekinetic powers can barely function, but now he's got telekinesis and he has to be a director of this adventure. What's motivating his direction for this? What's motivating his need to record everything on camera? Is it the camera is a barrier emotionally to reality, or is it that he wants to capture this? By capturing it, he feels that he needs to document this unique experience, this experience that is above all those other people that have tried to be above him. Everyone else has been a bully to him, trying to push him down, and he finally feels that, oh, now I have something that one-ups all of them. So wouldn't he be motivated with the other theme that this movie could possibly address, kind of a social theme, of everyone wanting to somehow be the star of their own reality show? So wouldn't he start uploading this stuff to a YouTube or some kind of video site to try to get popular? Andrew's motivations are unclear. He's kind of just like the dog that's beaten down, and he doesn't really have a perspective. Is he trying again to do something with his dad, get his dad out of the house? Is he trying to save his mom? Or is he trying to become popular? What does Andrew really want as a character? 36 minutes, 37 seconds into the film, we get the first sense when he mentions Tibet. They're all planning in the library here to do some world traveling, which I totally understand. That makes a lot of sense. If you had the power to fly and go anywhere, absolutely you would want to visit every cool place that you've ever thought of. So they start to mention it, and we get a little bit of theme there for Andrew when he says that it's peaceful. And notice how Matt kind of does that passive-aggressive bullying, making fun. Friends always kind of passive-aggressively bully each other. It's called just, busting balls, giving each other. It's a sign of affection, so it's not really a hatred, bad kind of bullying. It's just a sort of become a member of the club sort of frat hazing. You got to go through the pain if you want to become a member sort of thing. But that's our really first little indication of what's inside of Andrew. It took 37 minutes for it to happen. It's something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be worked in way earlier. This scene is totally forced. 37 minutes, 30 seconds is when it started. I'm at 37 minutes, 50 seconds now. Matt visits the hottie with the camera, and she says, "Do you mind if I film this?" It's really forced. And if you're doing this film with the God's eye, typical filmmaking style, you could just cut to this. You don't have to justify it. But the opening moment of the scene has to be the justification for the camera. Do you mind if I film this? What is it about this girl that makes her want to film everything. Yeah, she's got a video blog, but wouldn't she just film things whenever she wanted to blog? Does she have to film her whole life? What is it about all these people, all these younger kids nowadays that makes them want to film nonstop? She's just like Andrew, and both of them never reveal their true motivations for filming everything in their lives. Andrew, we get the sense, wants to capture his dad's abuse, but that goes away quickly. So here she is really just a function of the filmmakers wanting to justify that later on we're going to use her camera. And if we go logically, why did her footage end up in this final film? Who found it? Who edited it together? It makes no sense. So there's a violation of a pact here, with the pact being this is a found footage movie, but now we're disobeying the found footage rules, which means the camera is always with the people that experience the journey, and that's the camera, that's the footage that's found later on. There can't be footage from other people. Now, of course, rules can be broken or you can modify things, but that just seems a little bit of a cheat. It's like it was a cool idea, but now because we're ignoring really the journey with Andrew and starting to go other places, we have to somehow justify it. Really great moment here, 39 minutes, 45 seconds into the film, as Andrew and Steve are on the top of a building. Really cool place to have lunch, hang out, and it's a good window character scene. Now, we have to justify, of course, their filming of this scene, so Andrew is using his mental powers to film them, and the camera's floating around. Again, it looks a little bit too crisp and perfect. I really wish that this would have been a little more gritty and low-tech, lo-fi, with just basic phone cameras. Would have been a little bit more of a stronger impact. "40 minutes, 30 seconds into the film, Andrew is going to be in the talent show, and he's dressing up for his mom, and then he's going to have to go by his dad, the ultimate bully, where all bullying starts at home with the head bully. And this is every time the father's in the scene, whoever this actor is, this character was written a little bit too cartoony, a little bit too one-noted, but I mean, every time you see him on screen, you hate his guts. And amazingly, you feel his pain at the same time. You understand that he's just kind of beaten down, and he's just in this low point of his life, and he's just taking it out on other people. And he knows what's up with his son here, that he's not getting a ride to school anymore. And he's just sitting here drinking and watching TV. Love the design for the house. Really good set design here. You just get the sense that it's just this kind of rotting place that there was once energy there, but because the mom's dying, it's just this really negative vibe. So really well done. 41 minutes, 30 seconds into the film, there still really isn't any conflict for the main character. They've had the one moment where Andrew pushed the guy off into the little ravine, a moment showing some possible evil and anger. But other than that, it hasn't been. Really cool. I really like how they captured the sense of high school and a talent show where students aren't afraid to stand up and embarrass those on stage. It's another form of the bullying. The theme of bullying here is in a lot of scenes, and it's something that if it was addressed a little more seriously and a little more emotionally through Andrew's point of view, this really could have been X-Men Get Revenge on Bullies. It could have been, here's a lesson to the bullies. This is what happens when you take advantage of those that are weaker than you, and you drain the energy from those who are helpless, that it comes back to you. Andrew could very much have focused himself on teaching bullies a lesson, or there could have been something more with that element. Instead, it's just kind of done in passing. The ramifications of it really are never explored, other than that one bully who has his teeth pulled out. And this is a really great visual, 42 minutes, 55 seconds. Andrew crawling through a kind of monster's mouth. It's a lion's mouth, it's revealed once the lights come up, onto the stage. Love how no one gives him a round of applause. But it's kind of like this mouth of a beast, that he's emerging from it. It's just like a little foreshadowing. And this is fun. This whole sequence here, it's a great way to get him popular. And the whole theme of popularity, again, there's a lot of elements here with high school that could have been addressed even more. How easy it is to go from goat to hero and then fall back down again. The power of rumors, the power of just word of mouth, all it takes is just one little thing for a reputation to be built and one little thing for it to be ruined. And this is hilarious. Everyone's, of course, enjoying it. Now, the movie decides not to focus on any adults who might be here because if you're anyone other than a teenager here, you probably might think this is a little too sophisticated for kids to get away with. Like, how does a 17, 18-year-old know how to do all this stuff? Wouldn't there be like a little investigation and something would happen? And this really is a joyous moment in terms of Andrew finally feeling that he's accepted and that he's got a break from the pressure of being picked on. "44 minutes, 33 seconds. This is being filmed by Matt with a camera. Earlier we had the blonde with her camera, and it's cutting back and forth between them. Again, the question keeps coming up. Who has edited this, and why are we watching it? What's the point? Who put this together, and why has it escaped? And it's being edited in a very non-filmmaker knowledge kind of way. There's not a lot of focus on the emotion of the scene. Great moment here. 45 minutes into the film, hubris comes up. The hubris that comes before a fall, being too prideful, being too cocky, sure of yourself, thinking that nothing can bring you down. And of course, in a movie, even though it is found footage, and not necessarily a big budget Hollywood movie, 45 minutes, 30 seconds, there's always that one student whose parents are movie execs or internet billionaires or something, and they have the amazing house. So even in Seattle, I guess one student in that school, it's Steve here, I guess, has parents who have the amazing mansion, and they have the movie party. There's always a movie party in a teen movie like this. Now we get the red-haired girl. Is red hair an allusion to Phoenix, the Phoenix saga of X-Men? The whole idea of becoming something different, emerging from the ashes as something more powerful. Would it have been a better movie, let's just ask a question here, if there was a girl Andrew was interested in from the beginning? Take that cliche of teen angst movie making, Pretty in Pink or something like that, where there's, of course, the popular girl. Andrew earlier was filming the cheerleaders, so quite possibly he's interested in one of them. And why not have it that he's seeking solitude or some sort of redemption, some sort of peace in another person? While he can't go to Tibet, maybe there's a female that for him represents a better life. She's pretty, she's quote-unquote perfect, she's popular and smart. There's a girl that every high school guy, everyone who's gone through high school, has put some kind of girl on a pedestal. There's that perfect girl when you're younger. If only you could have her, life would be great. So it seems that that would be a possible objective and motivation for Andrew in the beginning of the movie here. And now finally, he's able to get her in this moment. Instead of having just some random girl show up, why not have it mean something more to him? He could have pictures of her at his house. He has her on video camera, so he's watching her. Yeah, it comes off a little bit creepy, but that's who he is. That's how he's dealing with things. And more importantly, it would serve as connecting us emotionally with him. And we can have some scenes where he tries to talk to her, and of course she doesn't give him any kind of time. She thinks he's a loser. But now the motivation for him to do this talent show would have more personal stakes. Again, any objective that a main character has to have stakes, because our question is always, what does it matter? What's the worst thing that can happen if this character doesn't get it? What's the worst thing that can happen if Andrew fails at this talent show? He still stays kind of this loser in everybody's mind. Here we have more kind of annoying camera work where they're switching back and forth between the blonde blogger girl and Matt's camera. And now we go to Steve's point of view, where he's got the camera with Matt, and they are going to ask Andrew how things have gone. The random girl emerges with puke all over her, so Andrew has gotten drunk, he's gotten nervous. Stuff was going to go down, but he couldn't handle it, and he's ruined it. So the same day he gets his reputation, he loses it and gets a new one. Now, it is believable that that would happen. Just one little mess up and forget about it. The thing that you did that made you a hero yesterday can make you a zero tomorrow. Okay, here we go. Really great scene. One of the most twisted images in just a teen angst movie ever. Andrew is in his room, and he is going to use his powers to just pull a spider apart. This is widely accepted as kind of a sign of how serial killers, murderers get started, where they test their cruelty and evil out on animals and helpless creatures that are smaller than them. So that's a really major step for Andrew to take, where he's really shown being cruel now. That was the second time in 50 minutes that Andrew has been shown to possibly have these evil tendencies. Number one was when he swiped the car off the road. Number two is when he destroyed the spider. Now, wouldn't the emotional impact of messing up the moment with the girl have been more powerful if that girl had meant something more to him, if she had been an objective for him earlier on? By making her just a random girl, yes, the whole notion of he could have finally had sex, and now she's going to tell everyone and his reputation is going to be ruined, that's still in play. But it's not as truly emotionally powerful as it could have been if he had been invested in her throughout the film. Now we go back to back with hardcore emotional scenes. That one was a nice silent scene where we get the visual indication of what's going on with him mentally. The father has him in the basement here with the camera set up again. And the father continues to be a huge I mean, this is just ridiculous. And so when Andrew finally uses his powers to push his father around, I mean, this is a cheer-worthy moment in the theater watching this. It's like finally this guy is going to be put in his place a little bit. But of course he isn't. You know, he's just like this animal without any wisdom. And you put him down and all he's going to understand is to come back with more force. And then later, one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen in a movie is when the father comes to Andrew after Andrew has been caught by the police and sort of burned up a little bit by the fire with the propane tank at the gas station. We'll get to that in just a second. This is a really cool visual moment that's not explained. We cut to Matt at his house in the basement being filmed by Blogger Girl, and Matt's nose is bleeding. Now, next scene, 52 minutes, 30 seconds, we are in the sky. Notice how the clouds are dark and lightning and thundering. That's an obvious visual representation and indication of what's going on inside of Andrew. He is thundering, he is raging, and Steve has found him. So there's a connection between the three of them, because Andrew asks, "How did you know I was here?" And Steve says, "I don't know, I just found you. My nose was bleeding." So when one of them rage out or use their powers too strongly, or let's say there's kind of like a shared energy between them, so if this energy sort of rises like a blood pressure, they all feel the effects. They all get this kind of group headache because they're all connected in this way, which makes a lot of sense. It's really cool. Now, Steve doesn't understand that Andrew is raging here, and of course, in a minute we're going to have Andrew kill him with the lightning. it's all happening really quickly. We went from zero drama and conflict for literally 50 minutes of the movie. At the 50-minute mark, we get the puke on the red girl's head, and for the last 3 to 4 to 5 scenes, Andrew has been raging out as a result. He's bullied his father, and he's killed his friend, and he's destroyed a spider. So those moments really communicate what's going on inside of Andrew very well. I mean, these are some great moments in filmmaking here, but one of the important things in a film is emotional consistency and a believable transition towards becoming a certain person. And it's really an effect of the style of editing here. Because the filmmakers decided to go with found footage, for some reason, not justified and not explained, important moments are cut out, scenes are cut short, and we don't get the moments that take us increment by increment to Andrew blowing up like this. I'm not hating on this film in any way. I'm a big fan of it. I like the idea. I like the execution. The performances are good. It's believable within the universe. The set pieces are fun. But from a screenwriting structure point of view, Act 2 begins at the 50-minute mark, because that's the point when there is an opposition in the film. That's the point when conflict starts. For 50 minutes, this movie has been conflict-free, which indicates there was not a main character pursuing objective with an opponent to try to stop him. Was there a theme? Was there a character undergoing a change in who they are? A little bit. Were there any stakes? What was at stake if they continued to test out their powers? If Andrew continued to go to school? If he continued to be at home and his father bullied him? What were the stakes up until 50 minutes into the film? There really weren't any. Structurally, in Act 2, that's the point when a main character pursues objective, the opponent is constantly in their face trying to stop them, and from the moment Act 2 starts, the main character is trying different ways to achieve the objective. The opponent provides constant roadblocks, and the main character must find ways around them and in the end, overcome and achieve what he or she wants. That really hasn't started here until roughly the 50-minute mark, when things are starting to get tense. Andrew is showing that he is indulging his dark side and using the powers for evil. Great moment here, 56 minutes into the film, when Andrew visits Steve's grave and apologizes and really wants him to know that he's sorry for what happened. The camera there mimics, I guess, what would be Andrew's idea of capturing the scene. So it's not a very cinema-worthy, Oscar-worthy visual. It's kind of amateurish. So that's well done enough. And that's an example of a scene where the found footage has to mirror what the character is able to do when it comes to filmmaking. Now, it gets really confusing here in a kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde way, because 57 minutes into the film, we've just had a scene where Andrew was really sorry to Steve. And then the very next scene, after being made fun of by the clique of girls, including the red hair girl, and then the bully from earlier, he pulls the bully's teeth out, and then he does a really creepy window character moment where he explains how he pulled the teeth out and how a couple of them were broken and they weren't clean. And then he now talks about the apex predator, one of the more memorable lines in the movie here. He's in the junkyard, 57 minutes, 40 seconds, and he is basically implying that he's the apex predator. He's kind of going crazy here a little bit. He's killed his friend, and a way of sort of justifying it in his mind, of alleviating the guilt, would be to look up information on what's going on and try to find something that's going to make him feel a little more at ease, a little more justified. The idea being that a lion doesn't apologize when it kills its prey. So Andrew here is becoming the lion. Now we see him editing here. So 58 minutes, 20 seconds into the film, it's an indication that Andrew has edited all this. And based on his personality, that's why the film is the way it is. He's cut out all these emotional parts to sort of forget about how he's become who he's become. It's not clear. You have to really infer that on your own. And it's really stretching it. From a structural screenwriting point of view, the first 50 minutes are conflict-free. And that's just because the writer-directors decided not to have any character here really have a strong, obvious objective and no opponent as a result. Just take it as sort of a slice of life. What happens if the average kid managed to have X-Men superpowers? Well, this is what would happen. And that's fine, but the average kid has average kid objectives. You don't need them to be wanting to go off and be Superman or Batman or something. You just need them to have realistic, here's what we would do in the moment goals. 59 minutes, it's interesting. We're getting scenes that are very opposite each other when it comes to Andrew's emotional state. He's kind, he's mean. He's kind, he's mean. Where now we just had him help turn his mom off of her back onto her side so he could alleviate the pain. And now he's going to go get the prescription that she needs because the pain is so bad. That's something that was hinted at earlier, really hinted at very well and cinematically, where it's not being explained, it's just being observed. The father was on the phone begging with the pharmacist or the insurance company that he couldn't afford the medicine and his wife was in pain and he was helpless and he needed to have someone be kind to him. The bully looking for kindness. And now you understand that he takes somebody else's bullying, because you could say that the insurance company or whoever was denying him was kind of bullying him, and he transfers it over to his son. Is Andrew's objective early on? Maybe he's got the cliche paper route, or he's got a job. He's trying to somehow help his father make payments so that his mother could have the medicine she needs. Now all of a sudden, an hour into the movie, Andrew starts to have an objective that seems should have been in the movie from the beginning. It all comes down to the structure. Main character pursuing objective with an opponent trying to stop him, going through a change with someone to talk to, and something at stake. This is a really cool scene. A lot of this movie almost seems like the writers sat around the table and said, what would be some cool moments to have in this film? Imagine you're a teenager, you get this power, what would you do with it? And they just kind of rattled off like 20 different things that the average teenager would do with these powers. Oh yeah, they would totally go flying and play football in the sky. These cool ideas were thought of, but they weren't fit into a structure that was based out of a character's motivation for wanting something based on who they were and their current emotional state. Now all we get for about 3 or 4 minutes here is a very solid, almost mini movie of a dude who wants to get money to help his mom. That's something that should have been in the film a little bit more. It's interesting here. I love the visual and I love the implication that Andrew dressed up like his father used to be, when his father was a vital and confident person. When he was the firefighter, he was in this uniform. So Andrew, becoming the bully now, has dressed up in the uniform of the man who has bullied him for however long. And that's a nice little moment, and seeing it here on DVD, you really get the sense that the gun was firing as Andrew knocked it out of the shopkeeper's hands, and then the propane tank explodes. So we had that nice little 3-minute mini movie, really motivated. We knew what was at stake. We had a main character pursuing an objective with opponents. Anyone who he was robbing was the opponents. And not really talking to anyone, but we understand why he's motivated with stakes. That qualifies as tight screenplay structure. So for 3 minutes, we get it. And what happens to us as we're watching it? We're drawn in, we're interested, our emotions are charged, because the structure of the screenwriting is working. The first 50 minutes were fun, but it was really kind of running on screenwriting fumes. It wasn't as tight as it could have been because it was only relying on the drive, that kind of element that makes us want to watch a movie. There are a lot of drives in a film related to screenplay structure. You want to watch it because of the character, because of the theme, because of the cool opponent, because of an interesting window character, and because of the stakes related to that objective. So there's a lot of pulls to us to want to watch. Of course, genre is one of those. So we got a lot of cool genre set pieces and even comedy. So comedy, sci-fi / superhero action set pieces really kept us interested. But now, as we see in this little 3-minute kind of mini vignette movie, once all the drives, all those factors of screenwriting, of filmmaking, all those character structure elements are working together, it really becomes engaging. Very twisted and emotionally dark and torturous scene right here. As Andrew is in the hospital bed, his father, who we still want to hold out sympathy for, maybe he's learned his lesson after Andrew beat him up a little bit. But no, he comes in and the scene looks like it's going to start as an apology. Son, I finally learned my lesson. We lost your mother. I'm so sorry for being the D-bag that I was. No, instead he blames Andrew for his mom's death. Wow. Just when you thought that a person couldn't get any colder or really evil, he blames his injured, tortured son for the death of his mother. And then love how the room just explodes. One element there related to the filmmaking was that there was an introduction of yet another camera and another justification. We're going to have to film this for the investigation. Lame. Totally lame. Either commit to the found footage aspect or don't. Because if Andrew's in the hospital, obviously that scene cannot be filmed, because if he's the one controlling the camera and he's injured, he's unconscious, we're never going to get a shot of it. This is too good of an idea to be held hostage by the requirements of an established technique. It would be better to do this film from that standard filming point of view of just, you can put the camera anywhere. It's not a found footage reality style of filmmaking. I really wish that would happen, because now the next scene, you get Matt, who is having a bloody nose, because again, anytime there's like a overuse of the shared power, everyone is affected by it. The blood pressure of the telekinetics rise. They all kind of get these headaches, these nosebleeds. But now he's forced to bring along the hottie blogger. It's so unnecessary and so forced. Really love the way this looks. And then Andrew floating with his father. He's totally turned. Now he's just purely in a rage. Everything's falling apart around him. Since the puking on the girl's head, he has not had a lot of window character moments where he's talked to the camera or revealed what's going on within him. Because earlier there was no conflict and drama, because he wasn't pursuing an objective and there wasn't an opponent, there was no motivation for him to talk about how he felt. And there was nothing stressing him so that he had to release these thoughts about the emotions that were going on within him. Again, the set pieces and everything here looks super cool. Love it. The idea of it is great. Haven't seen a type of battle like this before. The whole point of view cam in the car. And we're going to get, these basically teens fighting with these superpowers. Really great idea. The visual, the Space Needle, everything is great. It really looks awesome. And it's an idea that should be celebrated and was just out there waiting to be made. But what's missing here is that complete structure that's really going to give it a harmony. It's just really basing itself off of these genre set pieces and kind of patching in nice moments of character here and there, but the emotional consistency isn't there. We're not getting, this happens to the character, this results in a slight change, that change makes them act like this action leads to the next emotional turn of the knob, until the point where Andrew now is just in a rage and he's angry and it's all justified. If we have objectives for him earlier in the movie, the perfect girl at school, trying to get his father evicted from the house, trying to save his mother, trying to make money for the parents, trying to somehow save his family. If those are established, we're slowly going to be anchored more with the main character, and we're going to understand how he changes into this monster. This looks really cool. One hour, 9 minutes, 20 seconds into the film, everyone in the Space Needle is filming him with the cameras. Again, we can go back to that bigger theme, that social theme of things only happen in reality if they're recorded. So there's the ideas of bullying, and there's the idea of that whole social network, celebrity, reality TV kind of thing going on. Andrew could also be having a personal objective early on of wanting to be popular. That might fix his problems, and this is seen as a solution to that. So maybe he's using his powers to be the director, producer, and star of his own reality TV show, but he can't do that because that would bring the attention of the government or people in power, and they'd want to study him. So unless it could be justified, that it's just really good special effects. Great scene here as Matt and Andrew float in the sky, and we have some good drama. There's not a lot of the drama one-on-one, character-to-character, dialogue-to-dialogue, but we're getting it here. And then I love how Andrew is just so far gone. He doesn't acknowledge his mom's death verbally. We get that he grabs his dad's arm and he's heard the whole conversation. I just wish in this moment here he would have maybe shed a little bit of a tear or something in rage. Tearing up might be too weak for him at this point, so let him fly into a rage of anger over his mom's death. And is it his fault or is it his dad's fault? He just says, "Why did you catch him?" That's the only kind of reference to that. Now, they're crashing through buildings and just really beating their bodies up here. And now we get another camera view from the point of view of the police car flipping over. So we just start jumping into cameras all over the place because based on the moment of the story, Andrew cannot focus on having a camera follow him around. So we're just going to get cameras from all over the place. That's definitely a cheat. We've gone from a point of view of just one camera to two cameras to now every camera's in play. It'd be nice to know why that's going on. And it's really going on because based on the story, the original justification for the use of found footage no longer applies, no longer makes sense. Why did Steve die from a lightning strike when these guys can just crash their bodies all over the place and not really be affected by it? Andrew is already in bad shape from the flames, but his body's going to be healing. And as he's fighting Matt's being thrown through all these walls and billboards and being punched, and he seems pretty unaffected by it. So there's something that's changing in them physically that needs to be really spelled out. There's nothing wrong in storytelling when a screenwriter, a movie maker, takes the time to say, here are the definite rules that these characters are playing by. Here's what's going on. And here for you, the audience, is the established parameter of what they can and can't do. That needs to happen. Love now how the police here really become another level of bullying. This authority that misunderstands the loser, the outcast, the weakling. And Andrew, again, this would be a really great moment that would crescendo if this theme of bullying was carried through. Now, these scenes look really great, hour and 13 minutes into the film, as they're going through the city and just crashing all over the place. Really well filmed, everything's crumbling. Have not seen a fight like this exactly like this in ever, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Superman 2, as the other Supermen show up and Superwoman, and Superman has to fight them off, and they really destroy the city. It's really well done. In an age of pre-CGI, that film really does a lot of things well. Cloverfield is a movie, again, found footage, but also with the characters going through the city as it's slowly being destroyed. Very similar here. Here we get straight up. This is just a test run for Akira right here. This is the scene, hour and 13 minutes, 50 seconds in, as Andrew is battered and tattered, and he kind of is like this Frankensteinish creature who's being hunted by the people of the village, even though he's dressed up more like the mummy with all the bandages and everything. Very similar scene to what goes on in Akira when the character now is going to use the power and just rage out. Love how this looks. I mean, Andrew is just pure primal anger right now. He's not even conscious of what he's doing. And the buildings are starting to crumble, and Matt is going to be forced to kill him. It would have been even stronger if throughout the movie Matt and Andrew were in opposition a little bit more. We get the sense that Matt teases him a little bit, but kind of like from a big brother's point of view. And now the spear goes through Andrew. Matt kills his cousin because Andrew was about to destroy the city. Very powerful image here. One thing I always wonder about now is, you know that the government is going to look at all this footage and analyze the brain of Andrew. So I kind of wish that Matt would have had enough awareness here to say, I'm going to take the body of Andrew with me. If he would have just flew up a little bit and maybe pulled that spear and took it with him and buried Andrew in Tibet, not just a video camera. It's very weird that he just says, oh, I'm here, buddy, and he brings a video camera with him. It's a requirement of the film because that's the technique and style that's been used to tell the story, so technically the only way we get this final shot is if a video camera is there, so we have to justify it. There should be no justification in a movie for the filmmaking technique other than at the very beginning when the story unfolds and we understand why we're here, especially if it's found footage like Blair Witch. We're going in the woods to look for the witch, we're bringing these cameras. Boom, makes total sense. Going away party in New York, just as some weird meteor creature thing attacks, and now we take the camera with us and we start to film our journey of escape. Cloverfield, makes total sense. But why does he bring the camera? Why does he talk to the camera as if it's Andrew? Is there something with disembodied consciousness going on? These moments need to be explored and fleshed out a little bit more. This movie's really short. It's already the end. We're an hour and 16 minutes into it. Once the credit sequence ends, it's going to roughly be about 84 minutes. Could easily tack on another 10 minutes or so and take some time to explore character motivations and objective and to allow their powers to add to what they were already going for as regular people. Give them something to want as regular people, and now once they become superpowered, they can just use that to achieve what they want. Andrew very much was a Peter Parker-ish character, so where is Andrew's Mary Jane? That's all we need. We just need a Mary Jane, and then you can have Dr. Oz, Oscorp, the Lizard, all that kind of thing. Whatever your opponent is in that moment, it just needs to be thought through. Look at films that have come before, take inspiration from them, whether it's character or structure or theme, and then based on what you want to say, incorporate it all together. The last character that we see here is Matt. Has Matt changed as a person? What has he wanted? He was interesting in that he was always spouting philosophy. And he was this kind of idea person in the movie, but he stopped doing it. And I wish his journey would have been a little more explored as well. Every character in a movie should have a personal objective. Steve was interesting because he wanted to be president. He wanted to get into politics. And that really came through in his character. Out of all the characters, he was the one who was most outspoken, outgoing, and truly based in what his motivations were. You never wondered about him. Andrew was a little more of a mystery. You got what made him who he is, but you never felt what he felt because he didn't share it with us. In a movie where a character has a video camera, it's a missed opportunity that he really didn't spill his guts to that camera. If he's a character who doesn't have a lot of friends and anyone to talk to and feels misunderstood, wouldn't that camera become the best friend? And what do you do with your best friends? You talk their ears off. Best friends are those people who understand you almost better than yourself. They're the family that you get to choose. And don't you want them to understand you as much as possible? Don't you want to feel like there's one person out there who gets what's going on inside of you? And Andrew's a type of character who really feels silenced and not really heard or respected, so wouldn't he just let all of his emotions out regarding his mother, how she's sick and how it makes him feel, and what is he going to do for his future? What his goals are after high school. They're seniors. What is his plan? And his father, what did his father used to be like? And how does it make him feel to see him so broken down and angry and taking out the abuse on him? These things really need to be addressed in order for us to truly understand what's going on and to truly see the incremental change, much like Michael Corleone in The Godfather, where there's a great moment in front of the hospital as Don Corleone has been shot, but he's still alive, and Michael is outside standing guard, and there's a shot of his hand because it looks like there's possibly some guys coming up the stairs or driving by that are intending to try to kill his father again. And Michael kind of scares him off, and then we get a shot of his hand, and he's not nervous. It's in his blood. It's who he was meant to be. He's a guy who can be in a stressful situation, and it's not going to affect him. We need moments like that, and we need moments where, like in The Godfather, he talks to Robert Duvall and other people regarding how he's feeling about things and how he's changing. It's just a proven rule of storytelling that the more you have that, the more you have the Greek chorus, which allows us insight into the interior workings of the main character, that we're truly going to understand them. One of the things missing from storytelling on the big screen over the last few years is the notion of a theme, of a character going through something and becoming someone else by the end of it. And more importantly, the way that that theme is understood by us, the audience, is a window character, someone to talk to. In Castaway, it was a volleyball. In Star Wars, Luke talked to Obi-Wan. Later, he talked to Yoda. Who is the character, much like Morpheus for Neo in The Matrix, through whom we gain access to the main character? Here we had the video camera, a perfect window character opportunity, but we had a main character who didn't talk about his emotional state, mainly because he didn't have an objective and an opponent stressing him internally. The opponent is there to stress the main character. The opponent, in a lot of ways, is one of the best things that can happen to a main character because it is through the opponent that the main character becomes who they are meant to become. Or at least for this story, this movie, who they are destined to be. The main character calls forth this journey, this stressful, conflict, dramatic, ridden situation, because within them is a desire to go through the stress, to go through the pain, and to be birthed, to become someone new. So Andrew, as he turns on the video camera, initiates this journey. What is the story that he is calling to him by having this video camera now? He made a decision before the camera turns on, the off-screen story, because in all storytelling, we, the audience, have to fill in the blanks of the out-of-screen picture. There are things we see within the screen, but all around it, the world around it, we, the audience, are responsible for helping to create, with our imagination, based on the visual cues and clues we get on screen. So before this camera lights up red with that record button, what was Andrew's motivation in getting this camera? There's an off-screen scene that happens before the film where he gathers money together and he goes to Best Buy or he goes on eBay and he buys an older camera. He buys a $500 camera. What was the moment that motivated him to get that camera? In the very first scene, he says, "I'm going to start recording everything from now on." This implies that his father's been acting worse and worse in terms of the violence and the bullying because his mom is closer to dying. We can assume that the father, as the mother gets closer to death, the immature, emotionally closed-off father who can't deal with things, his state of being mimics the state of his mother. As she gets closer to death, the father's anger and rage mirror that. When she was healthier, maybe he wasn't as abusive. So there came a moment when Andrew decided, I'm going to start filming this. So why? That seems to be the beginning of an objective. So the objective needs to be, Andrew has a video camera for X purpose. What does he want to do? That's what we need to see him doing throughout the beginning of this movie. It should be on his mind. Add in the whole Mary Jane love interest so that later, when this really great scene of total embarrassment, and it would absolutely send a teenager over the edge, especially if it puts them even lower in the minds of fellow classmates on the popularity scale, that would make sense. So have a love interest that would emotionally mean something to him, and then have an objective of becoming popular somehow. Maybe using the camera to upload videos and become popular that way, to rid his home of his father, whatever the objective that we've talked about throughout this commentary, that needs to be established, because for 50 minutes of this film, it's entertaining based on the genre of sci-fi, of fantasy, of superhero, of comedy. But drama isn't really present, because drama means people fight for something. People can only fight for something when people want something. They have to want something from each other, which means someone is a main character. Technically, both people are main characters in their own movie, and they're each other's opponents. And through the conflict, the theme of characters change. We don't have a lot of conflict until Andrew gets ultimately embarrassed in that mansion super party scene. And from that moment on, the last 30 minutes of the movie really have a force to them. Watch this movie again. Pay attention to the first 50 minutes. Notice that you're not really on the edge of your seat and really pulled in based on any drama. You're there because it's interesting when it comes to what would kids do with superpowers. And then once Andrew starts embracing the anger and the rage within him and combining that with all of the abilities he's gotten, then it becomes interesting. The whole trying to get money for his mom scene, really engrossing. And that final sequence of fighting with Matt, totally just visceral, phenomenal again. That's what Akira could be if it's in the hands of someone who cares about the material and wants to do it right. And then we have the resolution, which is like 3 minutes. So there's only about 20 minutes or so where there's true opposition, conflict, drama, characters going against each other. And it's unfortunate. All it takes is just knowing screenplay structure, working it out, a couple more rewrites, and a really good film, a really fun film with a great idea can become truly great and memorable and rewatchable and an absolute classic that initiates a universe that can become a franchise here. Matt says at the end he's going to find out who was responsible and discover what the meteor was or what that intelligence was that gave him the powers, and he's going to find some answers. So that's an obvious setup for a sequel here. Final note again would be this movie would have been better served either without the found footage technique or if it had obeyed the found footage technique more and not sacrificed it for the sake of cooler set piece visual ideas. It seems like the filmmakers wanted to have all their coffee table ideas of, okay, what would kids do with superpowers? Seems like they wanted to have it in all of them in the movie. And because of that, they had to justify, how are we going to film these scenes? Instead of asking, what would Andrew do as a character? What does he want? What are his objectives? Who's stopping those objectives? How are we going to film it through his point of view? That has to be the cinematic honesty here, instead of taking some shortcuts. I guess you could say, yeah, okay, technically that's right, but that's just being a little nitpicky or having standards too high. But is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with really looking at an idea and saying, based on the idea itself and the expression that it was asking to manifest, it was really asking to be this type of movie. Every idea is like a plant that wants to grow at its own pace and angle and style. You can't make a lily look like a rose. Every organism has its own eventual expression. So every story has a unique way of unfolding because of the main character. Everything starts there. The camera is just in service to the emotions of the main character, to the journey of the main character, and everything else is secondary. Once character and actions and scenes and drama are designed around an idea of a filmmaking technique, that's when things become disingenuous. That's when things become a little bit forced, and we can feel it deep down. One final note would be that movies, along with lacking a lot of theme and journey lately, are also afraid to be socially relevant, especially in a movie like this where it's high school and there's super bullying going on. It's almost begging for some kind of perspective on that. Can Andrew have a point of view as a victim of this? And the bullies themselves, can they have their perspective, and can that be expressed? It's almost like those moments were there but they were edited out. What's the point of covering some kind of territory that's especially really relevant and very current on our minds as a culture, and not having just that final step of courage to say, you know what, let's have the characters or address it somehow? It's like the movies are just playing it safe, not wanting to rock the boat one way or the other, as if someone would say, well, you know, bullies and the victim of bullies, they both watch movies, so why alienate both of them? There's a story back in the 90s when Nike and the gym shoe really became popular. One of the athletes, I forget who it was asked by the Democratic Party to give a political endorsement. And the response, maybe by the athlete themselves or like their PR person, was that, well, Republicans buy gym shoes too. It's almost like here in film, lately, movies don't want to take a side, don't want to have a real opinion about certain topics, even if the film itself is steeped in and really addressing that topic, dealing with it, surrounded by it. Not that every movie has to be someone standing on a soapbox and talking about a political problem or poverty or war or whatever, but if the character is dealing with a certain issue, wouldn't the character address that issue? Wouldn't they emotionally feel it and talk about it as much as they could and make it believable in that way? Seems that there was a real missed opportunity here regarding those elements of bullying, celebrity, and status. This film really could have been something bigger, but it played it a little bit safe. It's definitely a fun film, but there's a difference between fun and fantastic. There's a difference between enjoyable and memorable. And that's the difference that makes films classics. That's how they get put on the AFI list. Movies have the ability to layer so many ideas and so much into them that it would not bother the audience or hurt the box office to include bigger ideas. Stories are told by humans. Humans live with other humans, and we've created all these situations and dynamics in life. So it only makes sense that they would reflect that. Do Oscar movies need to be the only ones that take things quote-unquote seriously? Or does any story have the ability, possibly should have the responsibility, to stay honest to its story and address whatever issues that story reveals. Things to think about. What do you think, movie world? Do you agree or disagree with the points brought up during the commentary? Do you feel that the movie cut the story short in order to leave material for the coming sequels? Are you interested in seeing further installments of this potential franchise? Leave your thoughts with peace and respect in the comment section. If you enjoyed this movie night and look forward to others, keep in touch by subscribing to this channel here and following me all over the digital social universe at these sites. Until the next movie night, remember, StoryCorp gives us more of what we pay for, so let's choose our movies wisely. And until next time, long live good... back it up, okay? And until next time, long live... Whoa, come on. Powers of Chronicle create anger and rage in those who use them. Having trouble controlling it, must focus, must Chronicle powers overloading. Ah!